Welcome back, deep divers. Today, we're going way back in time to 1940s Los Angeles. It's the Black Dahlia case.
A case that just won't quit. Over 70 years later, and still no answers.
That's right, a young woman, Elizabeth Short, her Hollywood dreams cut tragically short. And the killer never found. We're going to really get into it, see what we can find.
It really is a mystery.
Yeah.
So many pieces still missing.
We've got so much to work with. Historical accounts, investigative books, even found a bit on YouTube, a true crime channel, all trying to piece together what really happened to Elizabeth Short.
You know, it's interesting, that Black Dahlia nickname, she never even knew it. It was the press that came up with that. They tied it to a film, The Blue Dahlia. It was popular the year before. That's how the image stuck in everyone's mind.
So before the nickname, before the headlines, who was Elizabeth Short?
Well, she was a young woman, trying to make it in California. She'd come from Boston to be with her dad, wanted to be an actress, like so many others back then. She worked as a waitress, moved around a lot.
Yeah.
And a real tragedy, too. Her fiancé, Major Matthew Michael Gordon Jr., he died in a plane crash.
Almost like a classic Hollywood story. But then things went dark, real dark. January 1947. That discovery, I've been going over all the details. It's just awful.
Can you imagine being Betty Berzinger, the woman who found her, just out for a walk with her child? Then that.
A vacant lot, her body naked, cut in half. I don't even know.
In the details, it gets worse, believe it or not. They drained all the blood from her body, and they posed her so deliberately. Then there were these terrible wounds, like the Glasgow smiles. Well, imagine a cut from the corners of your mouth going up towards the ears.
Like a horror movie or something. And the weird thing, almost no blood at the scene, but they found this cement sack nearby full of watery blood. What was that about?
Makes you wonder, right? To me, that says the killer, maybe they knew something about medicine. No blood at the scene means they moved her. Means they planned it all out, not just a sudden thing, you know, a crime of passion.
Yeah, that cement sack. Almost like he wanted to leave a message. To taunt the police. Like, look what I did.
Could be some kind of arrogance, thought he was so smart. Or maybe he wanted the body found fast. Hard to say. But it makes it even more complicated, this whole messed up puzzle.
Speaking of complicated, think about the investigation. The LAPD, they had so much pressure on them to solve it. They had like 750 investigators on it. That's unheard of.
It was huge. This case wasn't just another murder the whole country was watching. It tapped into all these fears about post-war life, the dark side of Hollywood. That's why they put so many resources into it.
And with all that, they still hit dead end after dead end.
I think the media attention, as much as people wanted answers, it probably made things harder. Imagine being a witness back then, knowing your name would be in the papers. Maybe they twisted your words. You'd be scared to come forward.
True, and then you had the killer, or someone pretending to be, sending these weird letters to the press, just giving the media more to work with.
Those letters are so strange, full of cryptic messages. He even sent some of Elizabeth's things. It was like he was playing a game with everyone, the police, the public, everyone.
Oh, so bold. It sounds like the police, at first, they really zeroed in on Mark Hansen. He owned a nightclub. Elizabeth had stayed at his place with some friends.
Yeah, that makes sense as a starting point. He knew her, and the police always look closely at people connected to the victim. But nothing really came of it. They cleared him in the end.
So if it wasn't Hansen, then who? Who else were they looking at in the Black Dahlia case?
Well, there were a few guys that really stuck out. Each one had this creepy connection to the case. One that really got me was Walter Bailey.
The surgeon, right. Yeah, his name kept coming up for me, too. What made him such a good suspect?
Well, it's not just that he was a surgeon. It's what kind. Bailey, he was a neurosurgeon. And some of those cuts on Elizabeth, the way she was cut in half especially, it was almost too precise. Like someone who really knew anatomy.
You're saying like a regular surgeon couldn't have done it.
Right. It's not just about cutting. You have to understand the body inside and out. And get this, Bailey lived super close to where they found her. And after the murder, people said he changed, like a lot.
Like he was hiding something awful. Really fits that classic image, the good doctor with a secret.
Exactly. But we got to be careful. Suspicion doesn't make you guilty. There wasn't enough to actually tie him to it. Not really.
Right, right. Another name that kept popping up, George Hodel. His own son, Steve, he was sure his dad did it. There's even this whole YouTube video laying it all out.
Hodel's interesting. He was a doctor, too. And like Bailey, he knew the body. Plus, the cops, they had his house bugged. And some of the things they recorded, well, let's just say they sound bad.
So two doctors, both with the skills, maybe the motive too. Did the investigators ever think maybe this is connected to other cases? Like unsolved murders back then?
They did. There were some pretty scary similarities to the Cleveland torso murders. That was in the 30s. They chopped up the bodies there, too. And the victims, they were often found naked.
And wasn't there talk about the Chicago lipstick murders? The victim there was a young woman too, right? And they found a message written in lipstick?
Yeah, and some people thought it was like those notes the Black Dahlia killer sent. That whole idea, a serial killer going city to city, targeting women. Scary stuff.
For sure. But did they ever prove any of those connections?
No, sadly they didn't. It all seemed to line up. But there was never that smoking gun. Nothing to actually tie the Black Dahlia case to those other ones.
So we're back to a ton of suspects, each one with a creepy link to the case. What were the main theories they came up with to explain why Elizabeth Short was murdered?
Well, one theory was that it was personal. Like someone with a grudge against her specifically. A lone wolf type of killer. Maybe a lover she rejected, someone she messed over on her way to Hollywood.
You know, the sources mentioned she was a looker, and they say her personality was hard to pin down. Maybe she got mixed up with some bad people, the kind who don't like being told no.
It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And think about it. The killer seemed to know her routines, had some of her things. It points to someone who knew her, at least a little.
Like someone who was watching her, maybe even obsessed. But wouldn't the police already have looked at those people? Why wouldn't they be caught?
Good question. Maybe he was just really careful, covered his tracks well. Or, and this comes up a lot in these cases, what if someone helped him?
Like someone powerful, someone connected to the police, trying to bury the truth.
That's a theory that's hard to ignore. Back then, the LAPD wasn't exactly squeaky clean. Some people think that's why they never solved it.
Plus, in one of those YouTube videos, they talked about how a lot of the evidence got messed up, contaminated. Makes you wonder what really happened.
Yeah, but even without a big conspiracy, think about it. Tons of leads, the media going crazy, people lying to the cops. It's easy to see how things got missed.
What about the mob? Was there any connection there? After the war, LA was full of gangsters, right? Could Elizabeth Short have gotten mixed up in something dangerous?
It could have happened. The sources mentioned she was always moving around, different jobs, chasing her dream. That kind of life, a young woman alone, it's risky. She could have ended up on the wrong side of some very powerful people.
That's right. There were rumors about her being with banksters, maybe even working as a call girl. Could she have seen something she wasn't supposed to see?
It's a possibility. Organized crime was everywhere back then, and Elizabeth's lifestyle, well, let's just say it probably put her at risk.
Another theory, another dead end. It feels like the more we learn, the less we know. But we can't forget, this isn't just a story, it's a real tragedy.
Absolutely. Elizabeth Short had hopes, dreams. Her life was taken from her, and it's important to remember that. It's not just about the gruesome stuff, but about who she was.
So as we get ready for the last part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what stands out to you the most about this whole case? What keeps bringing you back to it after all this time?
It's that feeling of the unknown, I think. The fact that it's been so long, no answers. It lets us imagine all sorts of things. It's like we're filling in the blanks ourselves.
And it makes you realize sometimes there are no easy answers. Not every story has a happy ending.
That's the unsettling part, isn't it? The idea that some secrets stay hidden, some killers get away with it, some stories just end with a question mark.
All right, deep divers, as we wrap up in part 3, here's something to think about. What if they solved the Black Dahlia case tomorrow? What would be the most shocking thing they could find out? The killer's identity, why he did it, or something else entirely?
Okay, so we spent all this time going deep on the Black Dahlia case. All the suspects, the theories, it's a lot to take in.
It really is. But it just shows you, this case, it still got us hooked. All these years later, it's more than just a crime now. It's like part of our culture. Right. I mean, it's everywhere. Books, movies, shows. It's almost like because we don't know for sure what happened, the story just keeps growing. People keep retelling it, changing it, you know?
That's what happens when a mystery stays unsolved. The Black Dahlia, it's inspired so many artists, writers, filmmakers. Think about James Ellroy's book, The Black Dahlia.
Oh, yeah. Huge bestseller. And they made a movie out of it, too. Of course, they changed some stuff, but the whole mood, that dark LA feeling, it was spot on.
And it uses the case to talk about bigger things, too. The dark side of Hollywood, all the corruption, the violence hidden under this idea of the American dream.
Yeah, like the case itself shows us what we're afraid of. The brutality, the mystery around Elizabeth Short, all the unanswered questions. It just keeps people coming back for more.
And it's not just books and movies either. Documentaries, podcasts, even video games. There's a whole group of people out there still
Mhm.
trying to crack this case. They look at the evidence, they argue about theories, they're searching for anything new.
It's kind of wild how this one case still matters to people after all this time. Like, it's a puzzle everyone wants to solve, even if we never find all the pieces.
That's human nature, isn't it? We want things to make sense. We want justice. And the Black Dahlia case, it's like the ultimate puzzle. It makes us question if justice is even possible. And it shows us that even though we're always looking for answers, sometimes they just aren't there.
It's almost like a warning, a reminder that some stories don't have a nice ending, tied up in a bow.
Right. And as we finish up this deep dive, we got to remember, there's a real person at the heart of it all. Elizabeth Short, a young woman with hopes and dreams whose life was taken.
I know, it's easy to get caught up in the mystery, all the theories, but she mattered. She was someone's daughter, someone's friend. She deserved so much better.
Her story shows us that behind every unsolved mystery, every headline, there are people who are hurting, families left behind wondering why, with no answers.
And even though we may never know for sure who killed her, we can't just give up. We got to keep searching for the truth.
So as we come out of this deep dive, what sticks with you? The mystery, all the suspects and theories, or the fact that a real person lost her life? What does the Black Dahlia case tell us about ourselves, I wonder?
Wow, those are some heavy questions. I don't know if there are any easy answers, but maybe that's the point. Maybe the Black Dahlia, with all the things we don't know, it makes us look at the dark side of humanity. And it makes us look at ourselves and how much we need to find meaning even when things don't make sense.
It's true. The Black Dahlia case reminds us that the truth is hard to find. Sometimes, even when we try our best, some mysteries will always be there, leaving us with more questions than answers.